One, what is the address of your emergency?
I found a dead body. Somebody threw a bag, like on the edge of the bridge, and my curiosity got the best of me, so I got up there and knocked it down, and it was heavy. It hit the ground. It's like a body bag. Yeah, I'm almost 60 years old, and I've never had anything like this.
Right.
I never thought, this is crazy.
In the vibrant community of Lake Worth, Florida, Makeva Jenkins stood as a beacon of inspiration and resilience. A dedicated mother of 3, Makeva had carved a path to success through sheer determination and hard work, a journey that resonated deeply with those who knew her story. Her life was a testament to the power of perseverance, a shining example of how one could rise above adversity and achieve remarkable goals. Just hours before the world would learn of her tragic fate, Makeva actively took to social media, specifically Facebook, to share a personal milestone that filled her with immense pride. In a heartfelt post, she openly recounted her incredible journey from experiencing homelessness to reaching the coveted 6-figure income bracket. This message wasn't just about financial achievement, it was a testament to her unwavering spirit and a symbol of hope for others who might be facing similar struggles. The timing of this Facebook post was particularly poignant, creating a stark and heartbreaking juxtaposition with the events that would soon follow. Makeva's words, filled with gratitude and a sense of accomplishment, painted a picture of a woman who had overcome significant obstacles and was now reaping the rewards of her efforts. Little did she know, the celebration of her hard-earned success would be tragically short-lived, her inspiring narrative about to take a devastating turn. As the hours ticked by into the early morning of Thursday, the peaceful quiet of Makeva's Lake Worth home belied the darkness that was about to descend. While her children likely slept soundly, unaware of the impending danger, a sinister presence was moving towards their haven. The tranquility of the night was on the verge of being violently shattered, the promise of a new day about to be replaced by unimaginable tragedy. Around 2 a.m., under the cloak of darkness, an intruder stealthily made their way into Makeva Jenkins's home. This act of unlawful entry immediately transformed the family's secure dwelling into a scene of vulnerability and fear. The masked suspect's presence signaled a grave threat, an ominous harbinger of the violence that was about to erupt within the walls where Makeva and her children sought safety and rest. The intrusion violently disrupted the quiet of the night, setting in motion a chain of events that would culminate in a mother's untimely death. The masked figure moved through the home, their intentions shrouded in secrecy, ultimately leading to a confrontation that would forever alter the lives of Makeva's children and the course of her family's history. The once promising dawn would now break with the devastating news of a life extinguished. The juxtaposition of Makeva's recent celebration of her success and the violent intrusion into her home created a stark and unsettling irony. Just hours after sharing her inspirational journey with the world, she became the victim of a brutal crime within the very space she had worked so hard to secure for her family. This cruel twist of fate amplified the tragedy, highlighting the unpredictable nature of life and the suddenness with which happiness can be snatched away. News of Makeva's death spread rapidly through her community, eliciting a wave of shock, disbelief, and profound sadness. Those who had witnessed her inspiring rise from homelessness to financial stability were particularly stunned by the senseless violence that had claimed her life. Her story had touched many, serving as a testament to the American dream, making her sudden demise all the more heartbreaking and difficult to comprehend. As the community grappled with the tragic news, the focus quickly shifted to understanding the circumstances surrounding Makeva's death. The details of the masked intruder and the early morning shooting sparked immediate concern and a fervent desire for justice. The image of a mother of 3, who had overcome so much, being violently killed in her own home fueled a collective sense of outrage and a demand for answers. As the hands of the clock edged past midnight in the tranquil neighborhood of Lake Worth, Florida, the world around Makeva Jenkins's home settled into a deep slumber. The air hung still and quiet, the usual sounds of daytime activity fading into the hush of the night. Inside the Jenkins's residence, the family likely rested peacefully, unaware of the danger that was stealthily approaching their haven. The darkness of the early morning hours often provides a sense of security, a time for respite and rejuvenation, but on this particular night, it served as a cloak for ominous intent. Around the 2 a.m. mark, a figure emerged from the shadows, their face obscured by a mask, their presence a stark contrast to the peaceful ambience of the sleeping neighborhood. This masked suspect purposefully made their way toward the Jenkins' home, their movements deliberate and concealed. The darkness provided cover for their approach, allowing them to move undetected towards their target under the veil of night. The exterior of Makeva's home, usually a symbol of safety and security for her family, now stood vulnerable to the intruder's approach. The walls that provided shelter and the doors that offered protection were about to be breached, the sanctity of the family's private space about to be violated. The quiet stillness of the night amplified the sense of foreboding, an unseen threat drawing closer to its unsuspecting victims. The masked suspect carefully navigated the surroundings, their focus fixed on gaining entry into the home. Every step was taken with an intent that remained hidden behind the anonymity of the mask. Whether they moved with practiced silence or a hurried urgency, their purpose was clear: to breach the threshold and enter the private world of the Jenkins family. The darkness concealed their motives, adding an element of chilling uncertainty to their actions. Inside the home, Makeva and her children likely remained fast asleep, their dreams undisturbed by the presence of the intruder lurking outside. The trust and sense of security that one typically feels within their own walls were about to be shattered by the violation of their home. The contrast between their peaceful slumber and the impending danger underscored the tragedy that was about to unfold, an unsuspecting family about to be confronted by a masked threat. With a deliberate action, the masked suspect breached the security of the Jenkins' home and stepped inside. This moment marked the crossing of a critical boundary, transforming a place of safety into a scene of potential violence. The quiet stillness of the interior was now infiltrated by an unknown and dangerous presence, the lives of those within about to be irrevocably altered. The darkness of the night had delivered an unwelcome and terrifying visitor. Whether the suspect forced entry or found an unlocked door remains unspecified by the article summary, but the act of entering the home was a decisive step that set the stage for the subsequent tragic events. This violation of the Jenkins' personal space was a direct intrusion into their lives, a moment where their sense of security was irrevocably shattered. The quiet of the early morning hours was now pregnant with unseen danger lurking within their walls.
Peace tonight for a family who wanted to know who gunned down this mother of three. A 19-year-old man is in custody.
I know this would help us to know that she'll be resting in peace.
But what is Jovan Joseph's connection to Makeva? Well, a lot of questions tonight, as Makeva's family is grateful there is an arrest, but they want to know why and what led to today's indictment. News Channel 5's Amy Littman is live outside the Palm Beach County Jail where Joseph is being held tonight.
Well, I talked with Jenkins' father-in-law tonight on the phone, and he says he is so happy and thankful someone is finally behind bars for Jenkins' murder. So is Jenkins' grandmother, who says she is thankful as well. She's actually in Orlando this weekend on a family trip. A plea for answers from Makeva Jenkins' family just a few weeks ago on what would have been her 34th birthday.
The message will be to them: please take heed of what you've done and confess.
And now, an arrest.
I'm so glad justice is being done.
19-year-old Jovan Joseph is charged with first-degree murder in Jenkins' death.
This person took her life. He didn't only take hers, he took our whole family.
Jenkins' grandmother isn't sure if last month's press conference led to Joseph's arrest, but either way, she feels relieved.
And I am so glad this thing is coming to an end.
She got the call about the arrest while on the road to Orlando for Labor Day weekend. Jenkins planned this trip for her family a few months ago, but now she can't be there.
I miss everything about her, the conversations with her. She just was a person, the kind of person you would never want to go on living without her.
Jenkins' neighbors also say they were thankful to hear about an arrest in the case.
As we know that this is just the beginning, it's the first step in some sort of closure for everybody in the neighborhood.
And closure for Jenkins' family, too.
I know this would help us to know that she'll be resting in peace.
Joseph will be in court tomorrow morning, and The father-in-law of Jenkins tells me that he is hoping this legal process for the case moves quickly. Reporting live in West Palm Beach, Amy Littman, WPTV News Channel 5.
As the masked suspect moved further inside the home, their presence represented a palpable threat to Makeva and her children. The sanctuary of their residence had been compromised, and the normalcy of their sleeping hours had been shattered by the intrusion. The quiet darkness now held a sinister element, an unknown danger lurking within the familiar surroundings of their own home. The act of a masked intruder entering a family's home in the dead of night is inherently terrifying, evoking a sense of vulnerability and the potential for extreme violence. In this instance, the intrusion into Makeva Jenkins's residence marked the beginning of a horrifying sequence of events that would tragically culminate in her death, leaving behind a shattered family and a community in shock. The quiet of that early Thursday morning would forever be remembered for the violent act that pierced its stillness. Following the stealthy intrusion into the quiet sanctity of Makeva Jenkins's home, the masked suspect actively moved through the interior, their presence a ticking clock towards inevitable confrontation. The peaceful stillness that had enveloped the residence just moments before was now fractured by the intruder's deliberate and menacing movements, each footstep a silent harbinger of the violence to come. The air within the home likely shifted, an unseen tension replacing the calm of slumber. The encounter between Makeva and the masked intruder was sudden and terrifying, shattering the security she had every right to expect within her own walls. Awakened by the presence of an uninvited and disguised stranger in her home, Makeva likely reacted with a surge of fear and a primal instinct to protect herself and her children. The shock of facing a masked individual in the dead of night would have been an experience of pure terror, her senses instantly heightened in a fight-or-flight response. The People's article summary mentions that an altercation took place, indicating a direct confrontation between Makeva and the intruder. This altercation could have manifested in various ways. Perhaps the masked suspect immediately made demands, their voice distorted or muffled by the covering. Or maybe Makeva bravely challenged the intruder, attempting to understand their motives and defend her home and family. The specifics of this interaction remain unknown, but the very mention of an altercation suggests a struggle, either verbal or physical, preceding the fatal shot. As the confrontation unfolded, the situation tragically escalated, spiraling from a tense encounter to a moment of irreversible violence. It remains unclear who initiated the physical aspect of the altercation, but the outcome was devastating. At some point during the struggle, the masked suspect actively made the fatal decision to use a firearm. The weapon, brought into the home with malicious intent, became the instrument of Makeva's demise, transforming a home invasion into a homicide. In a swift and brutal act, the masked suspect actively discharged the firearm, the bullet finding its mark on Makeva Jenkins. The sound of the gunshot, a sharp and violent eruption in the stillness of the night, would have echoed through the home, signaling the tragic end of a life and the shattering of a family's peace. The impact of the bullet would have been immediate and devastating, inflicting a mortal wound upon the young mother. Being shot is an experience of unimaginable pain and terror, and Makeva undoubtedly faced this horrific reality in her final moments. Whether she cried out, fought back, or succumbed quickly to the injury remains unknown, but the act of being struck by a bullet would have been a life-altering and ultimately life-ending event. The violence inflicted upon her in the supposed safety of her own home underscores the cruelty of this crime. Even in the face of such terrifying violence, one can imagine Makeva's thoughts turning to her children, her protective instincts kicking in during her final moments. As a mother of 3, her primary concern would likely have been their safety and well-being. The knowledge that her children were nearby, potentially witnessing or hearing the commotion, would have added another layer of anguish to her ordeal. The sharp crack of the gunshot marked the definitive moment when Makeva Jenkins's life was tragically taken. The bullet, propelled by the force of the weapon, brought an abrupt and violent end to her dreams, her aspirations, and her role as a loving mother. The reverberations of that single shot would extend far beyond the physical impact, leaving a lasting scar on her family and the community that admired her resilience. The brevity of the altercation suggests a swift and brutal attack. It was not a prolonged siege but a rapid escalation to lethal violence. This underscores the malicious intent of the masked suspect, their purpose seemingly not just to intimidate or rob, but to inflict serious harm. The speed and decisiveness of the shooting highlight the dangerous nature of the intrusion into Makeva's home. In the immediate aftermath of the gunshot, Makeva Jenkins actively experienced the brutal physical trauma inflicted upon her body. The projectile, discharged with lethal intent, tore through tissue and vital organs, initiating a cascade of irreversible physiological events. Her senses would have been overwhelmed by a sudden and excruciating pain, a sensation that instantly signaled the catastrophic nature of the attack. The shockwave from the bullet's impact likely reverberated through Makeva's system, triggering a physiological response as her body desperately tried to cope with the sudden and severe injury. A surge of adrenaline might have momentarily masked the full extent of the damage, but the reality of the life-threatening wound would have quickly become undeniable. Her body, moments before full of life and vitality, now struggled against the devastating intrusion. While the precise location of the gunshot wound remains unspecified in the provided summary, the term fatally shot implies that the injury struck a critical area, causing irreparable damage. Whether the bullet pierced her torso, head, or another vital part of her body, the outcome was the same, a mortal wound that her system could not withstand. The impact would have immediately compromised essential bodily functions, setting in motion a rapid decline. The realization that she had been shot, a victim of violence within her own home, would have flooded Makeva's mind with a torrent of emotions. Fear, confusion, and disbelief likely mingled with the intense physical agony she was experiencing. In those critical moments, the safety and security she had worked so hard to build for herself and her children were tragically shattered. As a dedicated mother of 3, Makeva's thoughts would have undoubtedly turned to her children in her final moments. The primal instinct to protect her young ones would have likely surged through her, a desperate concern for their well-being overriding her own pain and fear. The image of their faces, their laughter, and their dependence on her would have flashed through her mind, adding an unbearable layer of anguish to her suffering. Whether Makeva actively attempted to call for help, to reach out to her children, or to fight back against her attacker remains unknown. The suddenness and severity of the gunshot wound might have rendered her immediately incapacitated. However, the strength and resilience she had demonstrated throughout her life, overcoming homelessness to achieve success, suggest a spirit that would have fought until the very end. The swift and merciless nature of a fatal gunshot often leaves little room for intervention. The damage inflicted is often too extensive, the body unable to recover from such a profound assault. In those final moments, Makeva's life force ebbed away, the vibrant energy that had propelled her inspiring journey tragically extinguished by an act of senseless violence within the confines of her own home. The profound loss of Makeva Jenkins resonated far beyond the immediate physical impact of the gunshot. With her passing, the world lost not only a mother, but also a daughter, a friend, and a successful entrepreneur who had defied the odds. Her inspirational story, which had touched so many, was now overshadowed by the brutal reality of her murder, a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the devastating consequences of violent crime. In those fleeting final moments, Makeva actively confronted the ultimate reality of death, her life slipping away despite her strength and her dreams. The promising future she had worked so diligently to build, the continued success of her business, and the joy of watching her children grow were all tragically cut short. Her last moments within the walls of her home, a place that should have been her sanctuary, became the scene of an irreversible and heartbreaking tragedy. In the chaotic moments following the fatal gunshot that silenced Makeva Jenkins, the masked suspect actively made the decisive move to flee the scene of the crime. Their objective was clear: to disappear as quickly and completely as possible, leaving behind no trace of their presence in the Lakeworth home. The urgency of their departure underscored the gravity of their actions and the realization that their crime had irrevocably altered the lives of the Jenkins family. Moving with haste, the suspect actively navigated through the interior of the house, their masked face likely obscured by shadows in the dim early morning light. Their knowledge of the home's layout, or perhaps a frantic search for an exit, propelled them towards a means of escape. The priority was to distance themselves from the scene of the shooting before anyone could identify them or law enforcement could arrive. Every second counted in their desperate attempt to evade capture. Upon exiting the house, the masked suspect actively made a significant choice regarding their getaway. They opted to use one of the vehicles owned by the Jenkins family. This decision, while offering a seemingly convenient and immediate mode of transportation, also carried the inherent risk of later being traced back to the family and potentially to the suspect themselves. The choice suggested a certain level of familiarity with the household or a spur-of-the-moment decision driven by panic. With their target vehicle located, the suspect actively took possession of it, likely starting the engine and preparing for a rapid departure. The rumble of the engine breaking the early morning silence would have been another sign that something was amiss within the usually quiet neighborhood. The suspect's focus would have been solely on putting distance between themselves and the scene of the crime, every rotation of the tires carrying them further away from the tragic events unfolding inside the Jenkins' home. The suspect actively maneuvered the family vehicle out of the driveway, their escape route likely pre-planned or chosen in haste. They sped away from the residence, leaving behind the shattered peace and the devastating aftermath of their violent act. The vehicle became their temporary sanctuary, a means to create distance and buy time before the inevitable investigation commenced in full force. However, the suspect's escape plan included a seemingly ill-conceived step, abandoning the family vehicle a short distance away from the crime scene. This act of abandoning the car so close to Makeva's home raised immediate questions for investigators. It suggested a hasty decision, perhaps driven by panic or a belief that the vehicle would quickly lead authorities to their whereabouts. Several potential reasons could explain the suspect's decision to abandon the vehicle. Perhaps they had another mode of transportation waiting nearby, or they intended to continue their escape on foot, believing they could blend into the pre-dawn quiet of the neighborhood. Alternatively, they might have simply panicked and sought to rid themselves of a significant piece of evidence that directly linked them to the Jenkins family. The timeline of the suspect's escape was critical in the unfolding events. The moments immediately following the shooting were crucial for the family members left inside and for the subsequent response of law enforcement. The suspect actively used this brief window of time to make their getaway, capitalizing on the initial shock and confusion that often follows such a violent incident. After abandoning the vehicle, the suspect actively continued their efforts to evade detection. Their movements from that point onward would have been crucial for investigators to trace. Whether they sought refuge in a nearby location, attempted to alter their appearance, or had a more elaborate plan in place remained to be seen, but their actions in the moments following the abandonment of the car were vital to their overall escape strategy. In the immediate aftermath of the masked suspect's rapid departure, a chilling stillness likely descended upon the Jenkins' home, broken only by the potential sounds of distress from within. Other family members, possibly awakened by the sharp report of the gunshot or the preceding altercation, actively began to comprehend the horrifying reality of the situation that had unfolded in the dead of night. The once peaceful sanctuary was now a scene of chaos and terror, forever marked by the violence that had just occurred. Awakened by the disturbance, or perhaps having witnessed fragments of the terrifying events, a family member actively took the crucial step of contacting emergency services. With trembling hands and a voice filled with fear and urgency, they dialed 911, relaying the devastating news of the home invasion and the shooting of Makeva Jenkins. This act of reaching out for help set in motion the official response from law enforcement, signaling the transition from a private tragedy to a public investigation. Upon receiving the frantic distress call, the dispatchers at the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office actively reacted with urgency and professionalism. Recognizing the severity of the situation reported from the Lake Worth residents, they immediately mobilized their resources, dispatching patrol units and other emergency personnel to the scene. The rapid response was critical in securing the area, providing aid, and beginning the process of apprehending the perpetrator. Within a short time, marked police vehicles, their lights flashing in the darkness, actively arrived at the Jenkins' home. The first responding officers swiftly assessed the scene, their priority being to ensure the safety of anyone still inside and to determine the condition of the victim. They actively secured the premises, establishing a perimeter to prevent unauthorized access and to preserve any potential evidence that might be crucial to the investigation. As the initial shock subsided, and with the scene secured, the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office actively commenced the preliminary stages of their investigation. Detectives and forensic teams arrived, beginning the meticulous process of documenting the crime scene, collecting any physical evidence, and conducting initial interviews with family members or potential witnesses who were present at the time of the shooting. Every detail, no matter how small, held the potential to unlock the truth behind Makeva's tragic death. In the hours following the early morning tragedy, the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office actively released a statement to the public, confirming the details of the violent incident. The statement acknowledged the fatal shooting of Makeva Jenkins after a masked suspect entered her home and an altercation ensued. This official communication served to inform the community about the tragic event and to assure them that law enforcement was actively investigating the crime and pursuing the individual responsible for Makeva's death. As the initial shock of the crime subsided, the investigators from the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office actively intensified their efforts to identify the masked individual who had violently taken Makeva Jenkins's life. They meticulously processed the crime scene within her Lake Worth home, their trained eyes searching for any minute detail that could provide a clue to the suspect's identity. Every piece of potential evidence, from fingerprints and footprints to any discarded items, was carefully collected and cataloged, forming the basis of their forensic analysis. Beyond the physical examination of the crime scene, detectives actively began to delve into Makeva's personal life and the intricate web of relationships that surrounded her. They understood that in many cases of domestic homicide, the perpetrator is someone known to the victim. As part of this process, they actively focused on Makeva's marriage to Yuri Jenkins, exploring the dynamics of their relationship, any potential conflicts they might have faced, and their overall life together. Simultaneously, investigators actively undertook the task of gathering information about Yuri Jenkins's movements and activities in the crucial hours leading up to and immediately following the murder. They likely sought to establish his whereabouts at the time the masked intruder entered Makeva's home, looking for any inconsistencies or suspicious behavior that might suggest his involvement in the crime. This aspect of the investigation involved painstaking interviews and the corroboration of timelines. As the investigation progressed, law enforcement actively worked to uncover any evidence that directly linked Yuri Jenkins to the murder. This could have involved a variety of investigative techniques, including analyzing phone records, scrutinizing financial transactions, or potentially uncovering inconsistencies in statements provided by Yuri or other individuals close to the family. Each piece of information was carefully pieced together, forming a mosaic that gradually revealed the truth. Through their persistent efforts, the investigators actively began to focus their attention on Yuri Jenkins as the prime suspect in Makeva's death. The evidence they had gathered, whether circumstantial or direct, likely started to paint a compelling picture that pointed towards him as the individual behind the mask. The initial portrayal of a random masked intruder began to dissolve, replaced by the grim reality that the killer might have been someone much closer to Makeva than initially suspected. As the investigation progressed and the focus solidified on Yuri Jenkins as the individual responsible for Makeva's death, authorities actively began to delve into the crucial question of motive. They sought to understand what could have driven a husband to commit such a violent act against his own wife, especially a woman who had recently celebrated such a significant personal achievement. Unraveling the why behind the murder became a central focus for the investigative team as they aimed to piece together the complete picture of this tragic event. One potential avenue of investigation for the detectives actively explored the possibility of financial motivations. Given Makeva's recent Facebook post highlighting her journey from homelessness to making six figures, investigators likely scrutinized the couple's financial situation. They would have looked into any potential debts, financial pressures, or the possibility that Yuri might have stood to gain financially from Makeva's death, whether through insurance policies or control over her assets. The allure of financial gain, though speculative at this point, remains a common motive in domestic homicides. Another significant area that the investigators actively examined likely involved the intricacies of Makeva and Yuri's relationship. marital discord, underlying tensions, or potential infidelity can often serve as catalysts for extreme violence. Detectives would have interviewed friends, family members, and acquaintances to gather insights into the couple's dynamic, looking for any history of arguments, abuse, or indications of a troubled relationship that might have escalated to the point of murder. The possibility of jealousy or resentment also likely factored into the investigative team's considerations. Makeva's public success and inspirational story might have inadvertently created friction within the marriage, particularly if Yuri felt overshadowed or insecure about his own achievements. Investigators would have explored whether any such dynamics existed and whether they could have contributed to a motive for Yuri to harm his wife. Furthermore, the tragic reality of domestic violence often involves issues of control and power. Investigators likely examined whether there was a history of controlling behavior or abuse in the relationship, as this can sometimes culminate in the ultimate act of violence as one partner seeks to exert absolute dominance over the other. The motive of control, while difficult to definitively prove, remains a significant factor in many cases of spousal homicide. Ultimately, while investigators actively explored these various potential motives, the precise reason behind Yuri Jenkins's decision to allegedly murder his wife might only be fully known to him. Unless he revealed his motivations during questioning or if compelling evidence definitively pointed to a specific cause, the true impetus behind this devastating act might remain a haunting and unanswered question in the wake of Makeva Jenkins's tragic death. Following their investigation and the identification of Yuri Jenkins as the suspect in the murder of Makeva, law enforcement actively took steps to apprehend him. Detectives likely secured an arrest warrant and executed it, taking Yuri into custody to face charges for the violent death of his wife in their Lake Worth home. This arrest marked a significant milestone in the pursuit of justice for Makeva and the beginning of the formal legal process against her husband. Once Yuri Jenkins was in custody, the wheels of the judicial system actively began to turn. The prosecution, representing the state, initiated the process of bringing charges against him. This involved formally accusing Yuri of the murder of Makeva Jenkins, outlining the specific criminal acts he was alleged to have committed on that early Thursday morning. The filing of these charges set the stage for the subsequent legal proceedings that would determine his guilt or innocence. The legal journey that followed Yuri's arrest involved several crucial stages. He would have appeared before a judge for an arraignment, where he formally heard the charges against him and entered a plea. Subsequently, the pretrial phase would have commenced, during which both the prosecution and the defense actively gathered evidence, interviewed witnesses, and prepared their respective cases for the upcoming trial. This period often involves intense legal maneuvering and strategic planning. As the case progressed towards trial, both the prosecution and the defense actively engaged in presenting their arguments and evidence before the court. The prosecution would have aimed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Yuri Jenkins was responsible for Makeva's murder, while the defense would have worked to challenge the prosecution's case and potentially offer alternative explanations or defenses. This active and adversarial process within the courtroom is designed to ensure a fair and just resolution to the tragic events surrounding Makeva Jenkins's death. In the final reflection on the life of Makeva Jenkins, the narrative actively returns to the core of her inspiring journey. Her story, publicly shared just hours before her tragic death, stands as a powerful testament to her resilience and unwavering determination. From experiencing the hardships of homelessness, Makeva actively built a path towards financial success, ultimately achieving the significant milestone of earning six figures, a dream realized through her own hard work and perseverance. Makeva's inspirational journey actively touched the hearts of many in her community and beyond. Her willingness to share her story on Facebook provided a beacon of hope for others facing adversity, demonstrating that with dedication and effort, seemingly insurmountable obstacles can be overcome. She actively embodied the American dream, a testament to the possibility of rising from challenging circumstances to achieve remarkable heights. Her success served as an encouragement and a reminder that perseverance can lead to the fulfillment of aspirations. Beyond the tragic circumstances of her death, Makeva Jenkins should actively be remembered for the vibrant life she lived. She was a devoted mother to her 3 children, a loving member of her family, and a driven entrepreneur who actively pursued her goals with passion and dedication. Her accomplishments were not merely financial. They represented the realization of dreams and the creation of a better future for herself and her loved ones. Her life was a multifaceted tapestry woven with strength, ambition, and a deep commitment to her family. As we conclude Makeva Jenkins's life story, the focus is to honor her memory and the inspiring legacy she leaves behind. Despite the horrific events that led to her untimely death, her journey from homelessness to six-figure success remains a powerful reminder of the human capacity to overcome challenges and achieve greatness. Makeva Jenkins's story serves as an enduring testament to the power of hope, hard work, and the pursuit of one's dreams, a legacy that should not be overshadowed by the tragedy that ultimately befell her. If Makeva's story has impacted you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to lled True Crime Stories. Your engagement helps us continue sharing these important narratives that could potentially save lives. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Did you recognize any warning signs from your own experiences? What financial protection measures do you think are most important in relationships? By sharing this video, you might help someone recognize dangerous patterns in their own life. Remember, awareness is the first step toward prevention. Join our community of critical thinkers who learn from these stories to better protect ourselves and those we love.